Whoa, that guy seemed pretty intense. It's Radio Free and Smith, episode 409. And listen, I gotta level with you guys. I got a bit of a problem. No matter what's going on in the world, what's going on around me, I'm pretty much exclusively thinking about metal, you know?
You just don't turn it off!
Yeah, like that guy said. Case in point, last Saturday, I was hanging out with the boys, the fellas I do a podcast with, link in the description. New episode every Tuesday morning, goofing on news stories about people putting weird stuff up their butt, car crashes, and weirdos on the internet. Yeah, like that guy. Well, maybe not that specific guy anymore because,
He's dead, Jim.
But generally it's stuff in that arena. We've also got a live stream on Thursday nights where we goof on car crashes, industrial accidents, internet weirdos, and Japanese camping videos. Point is, last Saturday I was hanging out with these fellows. We were goofing on some stuff on the internet, and I saw this video come up in my feed with a title something like Top 10 Swedish Death Metal Riffs. Nobody else there besides me even gives a shit about fucking death metal, but I had to put it on, because I knew it was going to be bad, and I was going to get angry and make fun of it. As it turns out, when I did put it on, it was actually a pretty solid list. Even had some cool, more obscure stuff that I would have included, like Gorement and Crematory. But then I saw that this same channel also had a top 10 Finnish death metal riffs. And so I had to see if the winning streak held up. I'm not going to say what channel this was on. I don't want anybody to go out and harass this guy, but you could probably find it if you search for it. It had some of the essentials on there, you know, Convulse, Abhorrence, Sentenced, Amorphous, Demilich, that sort of thing. There was one pretty cool obscure pick in the form of Depravity, but then it's got shit like Solathus, Crypts, and fucking Ripiculo. And because of that, it's missing all sorts of essential stuff like Disgrace, Excrement, Phlegathon, Lubricant, Zisma, and most damningly, Demigod and Adramelech.
Exposed alert! Exposed alert!
Which is pretty unfucking forgivable. I mean, I should probably thank the guy for lighting a fire under my ass and causing me to revisit a lot of the classic Finnish death metal stuff I hadn't listened to in a while. But honestly, if you're talking about the greats of Finnish death metal, and you leave out not only important foundational stuff like Disgrace, Zisma, or Mordecus, but also Demigod and Adramelech. Like, yeah, there's no accounting for taste. Everybody's got their own opinion, blah, blah, blah. But seriously.
Get the fuck away from me, you fucking nick.
I mean, that's just a shameful display. And so, here we are now. You're getting an Adramelech episode. Now, I ain't got any problem with Demigod. Slumber of Sullen Eyes, all-time classic. Got that type shit going on, love it to death. I may or may not be working on a concurrent episode about Demigod while I'm working on this one to kind of build up a time buffer given holiday scheduling shenanigans. But for whatever reason, Adramelech and popular discourse kind of gets hit with the same bum rap as Dismember, where people say that Dismember is kind of like Entombed's lesser little brother. Adramelech is the little brother of Demigod. In both cases with these bands, I actually prefer Adramelech and Dismember quite a bit. There's something really special in particular about Adramelech. Like on their first album, 1996's Psychostasia, they do this weird thing that I really associate more with black metal, specifically a band like Ildjarn, where it kind of seems like the songs are communicating amongst each other. Like you got a riff in the song Heroes of Godly Blaze goes like... But then later on in the album, during the song Psychostasia, this title track, you've got this riff that goes... Maybe I'm just crazy, but doesn't it seem like these two riffs are almost weird alternate universe variants of each other? Or maybe like one was meant to go after the other, one's a counterpoint to the other, and yet both of these riffs exist in songs that go in completely different directions. It kind of gives the album a sense of meta-narrative that you don't really get with a lot of old school death metal, and maybe that's why this band wasn't as highly looked upon by the IPA-swilling hipsters that decided to revive and subsequently desecrate the name of Finnish death metal in the mid-2000s.
Rocky's a little too smart for you. Yeah, a little too smart. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I find a lot of similar stuff going on with the early Dismember material, but we're not here to talk about Dismember. We're here to talk about Adramelech. And as I previously indicated, both of those riffs are part of songs that go in very interesting directions. Let's start off with the opener, Heroes in Godly Blaze. The first thing you'll probably notice about Adramelech is that they're unusually brutal and intense and aggressive for your average Finnish death metal band. Maybe it's because their album came out in 1996, more towards the end of old school death metal. You know, like maybe they felt the need to increase the aggression to keep up with stuff like Cryptopsy and Suffocation. Or maybe they were just always crazy motherfuckers, who knows? Speaking of crazy motherfuckers, these guys are still a Finnish death metal, so as you're hearing right now, there's still plenty of weird Adramelech type shit going on, odd melodies, disturbing atmospheres, and deceptively elaborate song structures. And the typical Northern European death metal lead guitar, although in this case it's not that typical. Honestly, it almost seems like a bridge between that style and maybe some more weird Morbid Angel Triassic shit. I really like this part here, where they're kind of following up on that super aggressive riff from the intro of the song, but making it a little bit more introspective and dark via utilization of negative space, as well as this crazy fucking flanger noise they got going on here. Very Covenant era Morbid Angel to my ears in that respect. And we bring back that weird Adramelech bit from earlier to head into another more mid-paced sort of section that still feels very aggressive to me. They don't have the blast beats and the double bass going on here, but it just feels kind of hostile and coiled up like a snake ready to strike. And then they leave you with this more expansive kind of flowing riff that so many Finnish death metal bands were masters of. These kind of like long-form deathly melodies that not too many of the retro death acts seem to have picked up on properly, at least to my ears. And then we've got that title track that I played you the one riff from earlier, Psychostasia. This one also starts off very aggressively with that riff I pointed out that kind of is something of a counterpoint to that Heroes and Godly Blaze riff from earlier. And from there we move into some slightly more normal old school death metal type riffage, but don't get used to that shit. Because, as you're hearing right now, these guys can match Adramelech when it comes to just twisted fucking melodies. I'm wondering if it's because the production isn't as strange as it is on the Adramelech album, so the weirdness of these riffs doesn't stick out as much as it does with Adramelech. Thus, these guys don't have that weirder reputation that Adramelech does. But to my ears, if you actually listen to what the guitars are playing, this is just as strange as that thing. And just like Adramelech, these guys have a real ear for atmospheric shifts, such as this one you're hearing right here with the bass guitar. That leads into this odd, deathly waltz with a real creepy sort of lead guitar, kind of just bending all over the fretboard, doing all sorts of weird Azathothean shit. This may, in fact, be one of the best death metal albums of 1996, certainly up there with stuff like Cryptopsy's None So Vile and Deeds of Flesh's Trading Pieces, keeping the genre alive during one of its many dark ages. Adramelech, however, was not a Johnny-come-lately to the Swedish death metal scene. They've been around since 1991. It's just that most of the material they put out in the early 90s almost sounds like a completely different band, most notably on the Spring of Recovery EP from 1992. This one's got more of the standard Finnish death metal sound profile to it, very humid, buzzy, and swampy, where later Adramelech was very dry and desiccated and aggressive. This feels a little bit more thick and soupy. With that said, even if it sounds like a different band, it doesn't sound like a bad different band. I feel like if you're into proper Finnish old school death metal, you're probably gonna dig this era of Adramelech. Like this section going on right now, great sort of crushing death metal, and the part that follows it up shows off something that was common to a lot of Finnish death metal, but not to a lot of later Adramelech shit. A little bit of a grindcore thing mixed in there. Almost no grind in full-length era Adramelech. The lead guitar here, however, definitely shows hints of where they were going to go, because it very much sounds like later Adramelech lead guitar. And then this bit right here, this is more kind of almost death grindy shit. Very messy in a way that's entirely different from how clean and precise later Adramelech is. Nice vocal right here. Into more grindy stuff, I'm guessing that early Finnish death metal godfathers, Zisma, were a heavy influence on this era of Adramelech, what we call the grind shit going on. There's also notes of Bolt Thrower and Abhorrence and pretty much every other band you would expect. It's not as original as full-length album era Adramelech would be, but it's good in its own right. But to get to that core Adramelech sound, you're going to have to move a couple years forward to the Fall EP, which is the earliest emergence of what I would consider to be the classic Adramelech sound profile. No grind, no doom, no sloppy, messy stuff, just incredibly precise and directed pain and torture. And here's some more of that Demi-Lich-esque weirdness, but delivered to you with the production that emphasizes brutality rather than otherworldliness. So again, it's not going to grab the ear of the normies as much for how weird it is. It'll probably be more noticeable for them just for being unrelenting in its intensity. As you may have picked up on, these guys also have a lot more percussive weight behind their riffs than is typical for Finnish death metal. And because of that, a lot of it reminds me of late 90s Vader, or maybe even Morbid Angel or Suffocation than it does of what the other guys in Finland were doing at the time. At least until the more melodic sections like this one start happening. But even then, despite having that classic Finnish death metal mournful melody going on in the spaces between the percussive hits, it still feels more aggressive and in your face than a band like early Amorphous or early Sentence ever did. I really like the little sliding multi-note flourishes at the end of the percussive hits on the riffs here, which take us very effectively into the more melodic solo-led section, which is probably the most stereotypically Finnish sounding thing about this song. That 1995 EP, The Fall, that's the birth of the classic Adramelech sound, and it's pretty fucking fantastic. I've got it as bonus tracks on my copy of Psychostasia, that very first Adramelech full-length album that I opened the episode up with. Speaking of which, we should probably talk some more about that one, because it's one of my favorite death metal albums of all time, and it really shows the lengths to which these guys were willing to push their sound. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait a second, what the fuck's that? Clean guitar?
Shut up, bitch!
This clean guitar part actually fucking kicks ass, despite what less intellectually minded members of the scene would lead you to believe, and it serves as a perfect warm-up. For a riff set that hopefully has finally caught the attention of the Demi-Lich nerds in the audience. Once we get to full-length era Adramelech, we start seeing them really experiment with larger chords than is usual for death metal, which at times can almost bring them to something of a black metal adjacent sound. I don't know, maybe it's just my brain working in funny ways, but stuff like this almost reminds me of a band like Migwa years later. But then we get back into death metal in a way that only Adramelech can do, with this winding, creepy sounding riff. One of the best on the album, one of the best in the genre. And it stacks up very well, being alternated with this more black metal-y sort of bar chord, picking around individual note type riff, before we get hit with the last remnants of the grindcore-ish shenanigans that were so important in their demo days. Because riffs like this, at least to my ears, aren't as wacky as the other Adramelech bits. They still show off a bit of bolt thrower influence, which, despite what you may have been led to believe, is usually not a bad thing. And here's where Adramelech deviates from standard Finnish death metal operating procedure even more. Right after the Psychostasia album. I think in one of my older episodes I mentioned that old school Swedish death metal, apart from very notable exceptions like Dismember, kind of has a 3-album expiration date. You know, you get 2 classic albums and then like a weird transition-y album that's still pretty good, and then after that they aren't even really playing Swedish death metal anymore. The time frame for Finnish death metal is even shorter. Usually there's a 1-album expiration period.
Think about it!
Disgrace. You get Grey Misery, great death metal album after a whole bunch of demos, but by the time they get around to recording their second album, they've basically pulled a Volbeat. Amorphous and Sentenced. Both of these are great bands, particularly Sentenced, but when it comes to their later career, even as good as some of those albums might be, nothing really resembles classic Finnish death metal after their first album. They're kind of going off into their own wacky world. Mordicus, 1 album. Pertinence, 1 album. Demi-Lich, 1 album. Similar to Disgrace, Convulsed did 1 classic death metal album and then went right into death and roll. Hell, Cartilage, Excrement, Depravity, and Phlegethon didn't even make it to the full-length album stage. Adramelech, however, did put out a second death metal album, and it was indeed in that classic Finnish death metal style. And it's also one of the best fucking albums of all time. To get there, we're also going to have to go through the other bonus tracks on my copy of Psychostasia, that being 1998's 7 EP, which featured 2 live tracks and 3 studio tracks, one of which was a re-recording of a demo-era song, and the other 2 were new originals that showed the weird new direction they were going to be soldiering forward into. The production on this EP is fantastic, very modern, without losing that old-school sense of good taste. Does a great job of lending weight to their atmosphere. Speaking of which, bro, this riff right here is so fucking sick. back into that more groove-oriented bit from earlier. I feel like a lot of the world has spent a lot of time searching for the next Adramelech. Should have just looked right next door in Finland to Adramelech. I mean, check out this weirdo shit. Super fucking strange stuff. Maybe people weren't really vibing with it in 1998, but it definitely hits the spot for me in 2025. And it's been doing that for me since, I want to say like 2008, I picked up that Psychostasia reissue with all the bonus tracks, back when nobody gave a shit about Fin Death.
제가 프리앱을 너무 안 한다고.
Don't you try to bullshit me. You were just like every other normie death metal head in 2008. Call me a dork for listening to all this old shit. You're all into necrophages and Spawn of Possession and Beneath the Massacre. But not me. I liked Finnish death metal before it was cool to like it the second time around. I liked it when it was cool to like it, and I still like it, even as the scene has turned its back on it in favor of the brutal death metal revival. Speaking of which, if anybody ever hits you with something to the effect of, oh, that Northern European death metal shit isn't as brutal as the brutal death metal stuff, you fire back with a...
Isn't that cute? But it's wrong!
And throw on that second Adramelech album, Pure Blood Doom. Because this might be the meanest sounding death metal album ever come out of Finland.
Open the door, yes!
This shit feels super modern and super brutal without losing that old school Finnish death metal riff crap. It's got that weird, bendy, semi-Adramelech sense of oddness to it, but at the same time, it stacks up well against the more aggressive stuff coming out of the US. And as you're hearing right now, it's intensely groovy without sacrificing that aggression. And then you get those weirdo atmospherics that started showing up in earnest on that 7 EP. Like right here, we're gonna go into some full-on bar chord shit that almost could be black metal if it wasn't so goddamn brutal sounding. Just aggressive, hostile, and misanthropic. And watch when the drums come back in. It's gonna get downright mean. That's like a total Dave Lombardo Rain in Blood era Slayer slow beat. And I love the way they insert those guitar chugs to emphasize the desiccated heaviness. Then with a particularly disgusting drum roll, we bring back in that death metal riff from earlier, now given new life through this darker atmosphere they've conjured after that full stop in the middle of the song. This album is an absolute underrated classic, mandatory for any death metaller's collection if you ask me. It used to be really fucking expensive, because it came out on a tiny-ass label. Then in 2018, Nuclear Abominations Records reissued it, and again in vinyl in 2021, so it's relatively easy to find now, which thank fuck, because this shit's amazing. Is that fucking brutal enough for you? Also check out this little suffocation change-up. This is my personal favorite song on the album, entitled Season of the Predator. And as you are no doubt cognizant of at the moment, it's got some of the most brutal shit ever. And it's very groove heavy and quite catchy. One of the last gasps of great old school death metal. Up there with Vader's Litany, Angel Corpse's Exterminate, and None So Vile, of course. But the real reason I put this one on is for its mastery of atmospherics like those we heard on the Sleep of Ishtar song from the 7 EP a little while back. This is like the full development of that more atmospheric but still very brutal style. Check out the melody that comes in here, it's wild.
That's what's up.
Atmospheric death metal perfection, but just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, yeah, the brutality's back.
Well, you son of a...
This album really does have it all. Just brutality, atmosphere, an amazing production, catchy, memorable fucking songs. If you take nothing away from this episode of RFI, at least remember to go out and get this album if you don't own it, and pick up Psychostasia while you're at it. Thanks for hanging out with me, listening to me jibber jabber about some death metal, like I said in the beginning of the episode.
You just don't turn it off!
I can't really help myself, and I'm glad that at least some people out there seem to find it entertaining. Be sure to tune in next time for more good stuff. Bye-bye.
I got people on the inside who are double agents.